Radio TV phono nut here, and I just picked up these 3 flat screens from the same garbage pile around the corner from the house. One of them's an older Sano, I think it's a 26-inch, and the other one's a newer Insignia sets. One's like a 32, and one may be a little bigger. Making a prediction. It's a good possibility they all might just work. Somebody threw them out because they had a little age on them and they wanted something bigger. But if they need work, I'll make a prediction. The 2 newer Insignia sets have probably got backlight issues, and the Sano probably has some kind of power supply issue. Hopefully they didn't damage the panels when they threw them away. We all know how fragile these are, so let's fire them up and see. Alright, the Sano is a 26-inch from 2012. Now this could go either way. It could have CCFL or LED backlights. That was about the time they were switching over, so let's hook it up and see what happens. Alright, this one appears to be dead as a doornail. No flicker, no indicator light that I see, so that may very well be a power supply issue. And the next one is a 32-inch Insignia from 2015. That was Best Buy's house brand, and it runs off of a 12-volt wall wart. And then we have our rent-to-own sticker here, National Sales and Lease, which means they paid about 20 times more for this TV than it was worth. Alright, let's swing it around and see if it has any signs of life. Alright, power. What happens? And it also looks to be dead. Wouldn't surprise me if that switching wall wart is bad. This jack is very loose back here, so this could very well be the whole problem. Alright, I just checked the wall wart. It's putting out 12.3 volts, so no problems there. So we have 2 dead so far. Alright, TV number 3 has a broken leg, but it's broken on the back, and the TV still sits up, so we're not going to worry about it. We're not going to spend any more than we have to on this, and really not planning on spending much of anything on these. Pretty much my criteria for flat screen TV repair is if I can fix it out of my junk box, or for no more than a few bucks, I'll fix them. But otherwise, they get scrapped, because TVs are basically just a throwaway commodity now. You can buy them too cheap at Walmart. People want the biggest and the best, and people won't give you much for an old one, but I still pick them up because worst case scenario, I can still save power cords and capacitors and heat sinks and that sort of thing off of them. Alright, this one here I think is a 39-inch. is from August 2017. Now it runs off of a 120 volts. This one looks to have just one button on it, power and input. This is whenever they were starting to cut cost. Alright, does this one have any life? No, yeah, it does. And I can tell you this one's probably destined for the junk pile. In fact, you can see here the panel is busted on this one, and that probably happened when they threw it away. So this one I can tell you right now is destined for the garbage heap. This one probably initially had defective tab bonds on the panel, and then whenever they threw it away and threw the other 2 sets on top of it, that's probably what busted the panel here. But at any rate, I can tell you this one here is not worth fixing. See, the thing is, the panels on these sets are very fragile, and usually you can't look at it from the outside with the set off and tell that it's bad. And when people throw these away, they don't care anything about anything like that. All they see is a garbage TV that they just want gone, so they just throw them on the pile, and often that breaks the panel. So that's why on those other 2, we're not really going to spend any money trying to get them going. If we can get them going out of our junk, then great. If not, they're going to get scrapped, because there's a good chance that if I get those other two to power up, I'm going to find a bad panel on those too. Here's the inside of that set that runs off of a 12-volt wall wart, and as you can see, this is all there is to it. You've got one circuit board that has your main board and backlight driver all on the same board. Then you have a cable that runs down here to this board that's basically part of your panel, and it's these tab bonds on these ribbon cables that comes loose and causes the streaks that we saw on the other set. Now, as you might expect, there's really not much you can do to these. About all I'm going to do to this one is pull the board out and inspect the solder connections on this jack here, and if that doesn't do it, then this one's probably going to get junked too. Yeah, I could probably get on eBay and get a board cheap enough, but like I said, there's a good chance that when I get this powered up, I'm going to discover that it's got a fractured panel too. And on top of that, even if the panel's good and I could get a board for $15, I'd probably be doing good to get my $15 investment back. So that's the reason we're not going to spend any money on this. Alright, this jack is making poor connections. Sometimes I get 12 volts and sometimes I don't. Like right there, we're getting 12 volts. Well, it's on now, but the no signal message keeps flashing on the screen, and this looks like it has other issues besides a faulty power jack. See, when I bring the menu up, I get all this blinking off and on in streaks running through the picture, so this is probably another one that's going to get EOL. Well, this is a site you won't see very often, using a 1950s Heathkit power supply to power a cheap 21st century television, but it looks like we probably have a bad wall wart, because with our power supply, as you can see, our picture is stable. Now let's hook an antenna to this and see if we can get a picture. Okay, here's where we are with the television. We're powering it with this ancient non-regulated power supply, because with the original wall wart, the picture was flickering on and off. Probably because of a bad cap inside of the wall wart. We might bust it open and see what we can do. On these, the way you get the output voltage right is you connect the load, and then you start out at 0, and then you raise it up until you get the needed voltage, and in this case it's 12 volts. And to get our measurement, we used our digital meter, and instead of relying on the analog meter and the power supply. That's something that stuck with me from my electronics classes at the local community college. The instructor I had, and I've told you about him before, I thought the world of him, but in lab I had this bad habit of relying on the meter on the power supply instead of using the Simpson 260 or the digital multimeter. And after a couple of times of him getting on me about that, he told me if he caught me doing it again, he was going to put tape over the meter on the power supply to make sure I used the proper meter. And the reason for that is because those meters on those power supplies are not always the most accurate. But anyway, we powered the set, and then I tried to do a channel scan, but the tact switches on this set have a mind of their own. And also, there appears to be an enter button that's only on the remote. It's not on here, so I could not initiate a channel scan. So what I did, fortunately, channel 3 analog was already programmed, so we're feeding a signal from this converter box. Now, as far as what this TV needs to work, at the bare minimum, it needs a new wall wart, and it needs a new DC input jack, and then it needs a remote control. Here's the problem. By the time I order all of those things, I've probably got more money in the TV, or at least as much money in the TV as what I could get out of it, and I'm just not willing to do that. So probably what's going to happen, this one's going to get put back together for the time being, and then if down the road, if we come up with some parts that we can fix this with, then we'll do it. But I really do not want to spend any money on this. I might end up having to order a remote, but I don't even really want to do that, because like I've talked about before, the resale value of used TVs is pretty much in the toilet, especially for cheap crap like this. You know, when you can go to Walmart and buy a new set this size for what, $129, then makes it a little hard to get anything for a second-hand one, so you can't put much money in one. So we get on eBay, and there are a bunch of those power supplies for those in TVs, $11, $12, $11, $12, so yeah, you get the idea. And like I said, a remote would probably cost me about that much as well, if not maybe a little more, so I would probably have $30 in that TV by the time it was all said and done, and I might have a hard time even getting that for it. So back in the CRT set days, I wouldn't have batted an eye about spending $30 to fix a 32 or 36 inch TV or whatever it was, but that's back when somebody'd give you $150, $200, if not more, for such a set. But it's not that way today. Pretty much what it is today is people want the cheapest possible price, and in order to get the cheapest possible price, you have to compromise on quality. And like people have told me before, they don't care about longevity anymore. Just give me something cheap, and I'll use it until it breaks, and then I'll upgrade to something else by then anyway. So there you go. Well, I just came out to check on it, and now this one's blinking like crazy, so I think this one's going to be ready for the scrap heap too. And the current draw on this thing is all over the place, as you can see. I increased my voltage a little bit and got my picture back, so it may just not be happy that this is an unregulated power supply. So we're going to break in that other wall wart, try to fix it, and see what happens. Alright, we're opened up, and this is the problem right here. This main filter cap is puffed up. So we might get lucky and be able to fix this. Here's the underside of the board. As you can tell, this has been a little warm under here. AISHI, when only the best will do. So it's a 47 microfarad at 400 volt. Let's see if I can find something small enough that'll fit in here. Now the reason this is 400 volts is this is one of those power supplies that will operate on anything from like 100 volts up to 240 volts, so that's the reason you need the higher voltage filter capacitor. Alright, I found a 47 at 450 volts, but as you can see, it's a bit bigger than what came out of it, so maybe we can squeeze it in here, I don't know. Alright, this is what we've done. The 450 volt cap was physically too big. This is never going to be plugged into anything above 120 volts, so we just installed a 47 microfarad 250 volt cap, and this is a 105 degree, just like what came out of it. Probably a better quality cap than what came out of it. And we're going to put it back together, and that's going to be that. Here we are back together, and I had to super glue the case back together, and I scratched through the 240 designation on the voltage rating, but like I said, this will never be plugged into 240. The only reason they designed these this way is so they could have one adapter for worldwide use, and the only thing they would have to supply would be a plug adapter to make this adapter compatible with whatever kind of plug was in use in the region in which this TV was sold, so, or whatever device they included this with. These adapters were included with a multitude of devices. Alright, I think now I'm going to go ahead and put the TV back together. Alright, we're back together, and I have a piece of cardboard wedged in between the plug and the back of the TV to hold it in position where it'll make contact. And we are feeding it with a DTV box, obviously. Now it has a much better picture now that it's not in the sunshine. Now we're just going to let this play, and if it doesn't wig out after a few hours, then we'll see about finding a replacement for that jack. Even if I end up having to just drill a hole in the metal bracket back there and just mounting a jack that way, I'm not too particular. I just want to get it working for as least amount of money as possible. And right now we're only into it for one electrolytic capacitor that costs less than $1. Alright, we're back working. Still working fine, no hiccups. And I think the reason we had that little hiccup before is because we were using a non-regulated power supply. And digital circuits like what's in this TV, they require a rock-solid, noise-free voltage source. And when you have an old non-regulated power supply, and if there's variations in line voltage, then there's obviously going to be variations in output voltage, and I think that's what happened there. So we're going to let this run a little while longer, and while it's running, we're going to switch gears and look at the Sanyo, and then see what's up with that, and then we'll switch back to this one and see what we're going to do about that DC input jack. So this is one of those kind of sets like what I don't particularly care for, where the bezel pops out and then all the boards stay captive on the back, and then you have to disconnect the panel from the boards here. Makes it very hard to troubleshoot these kind of sets. Alright, we have the main board out, and I see 3 bulged capacitors, this one, and this one, so those obviously need to be replaced. But I just don't like the way this is designed. This was not designed for easy service, and it was the sign of things to come, as in throwaway television. Alright, I found some caps in my junk box. This is pretty much going to be one of those deals that we're going to put it back together, and either it works or it don't work. Because the way this is designed, it's just very hard to troubleshoot it, and I'm just not really that overly interested in it. Alright, board's back in, and all these little spring things. It looks like they're using the metal back of this panel assembly to establish a ground connection, and I just really don't think that's the best way to do it, but I guess they didn't ask me. Alright, we're plugged in, got the antenna connected. I'm not holding out much hope here. Now, are you going to choose to live, or are you going to choose to die? I guess it's going to choose to die because ain't nothing happening, so I'm not worrying with this. Well, we got a green light on the front, but wait, we have something. HDMI 1. Maybe we'll get something after all here. Where's our input button? Well, we have snow on channel 3 and some very weird sounding audio. Alright, where's our menu button? So I can try to program this thing. Now let's wait 2 hours while it does a channel scan. Still sitting on 0%. I seem to remember some of these sets taking an ungodly amount of time to set the channels. Well, we're at 30%, still haven't found any channels. I would have thought we would have found a channel by now. Watch the tuner be dead in this set. Well, if the tuner don't work, maybe the HDMI will, but here's the embarrassing thing. No, I'm not really embarrassed about it. I don't even own anything that has an HDMI output, so I won't have any way of knowing if it works or not. Alright, we're back together and working.
I want you to tell me what play one of the...
Okay, so we're in business, and if I forgot to mention, this one does use the old school CCFL backlights, so, and I think those sets are more reliable than the LED sets are. Alright, Sanyo's doing okay. Back to the Insignia. I found a jack in my stash of junk. I had to file out the hole a little bit to make it fit, but I have it soldered in place. I hope I got everything right, because I was in kind of a hurry doing this, but we won't know that until we get it back together, so let's see. Alright, we're back together, and we're where we were, so we must have did something right. So now we just need to get a remote so I can program the channels in this thing, and that ought to make 2 televisions out of the 3. I guess it's like Meatloaf said, 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
In 3 different areas.
Alright, here's the Insignia.
Second is
After a lot of fiddling with those flaky tack switches and saying a lot of choice words in the process, I finally got this television to perform a channel scan, so now we can receive over-the-air TV without having to use the converter box. Now, just to recap, this Insignia set needed a new capacitor inside of the wall wart power supply. Technically, anybody else would have just replaced the wall wart, but me being a penny pincher that I am, I decided to fix the old one, and we had to replace the DC input jack on this set. I found one that I think I saved off of some old Crosley that I junked. I had to file out the hole to get the jack to fit in there, but we got it to fit, and it's working nicely now. Now, one thing I noticed, I'm seeing a little flickering in the camera that I'm not seeing in person, but one thing I am noticing in person, especially on a scene with a white background, I can see some horizontal streaks in the picture, and that this may be just an artifact of it being a cheap television. I mean, any set that runs off of a 12-volt wall wart is more of an economy model of a TV. Now, the Sano set, just to recap, it had 3 bloated caps in the power supply that we had to replace, and it uses CCFL backlights, whereas this Insignia uses LEDs. Now, the other Insignia, we've determined it's not worth fixing. It has a cracked panel, but tomorrow we will open it up just to have a look at the inside, just to see what's in there, but that one is going to get EOL'd. Now, as far as flat screen high definition TVs, alright, as I was trying to say before the dog interrupted me, yes, these newer flat screen TVs, they do have a higher resolution picture than most anything else that I'm used to watching. I've seen some that look better than others, but it's really not a big deal to me. I'm perfectly fine watching an old CRT TV, and in some respects I think the CRT sets look better than these newer ones do. They may not have the resolution that the newer ones have, but to me they have a more natural picture, especially when it comes to watching older content, which is mostly what I watch. So as far as these 2 televisions, I don't know what I'll do with them. May end up giving them away, may try to get a few bucks for them, I don't know, but really hadn't got any money in them, so whatever, if I sell them, whatever I get for them I'll be ahead. So tomorrow we'll open up the busted Insignia just to see what the inside looks like, and that'll be that. Well, you really can't see the streaks on camera, but I can see them on this white background. It's like these dark streaks there.
Folks, I make the call every year as soon as the Medicare annual enrollment period starts, because it makes the whole process easy.
And that could also be something to do with that wall wart, but
free consultation.
I'm not going to worry about it. It's going to leave here just like it is. It would be fine for a kid's room or whatever, you know. But the thing about it is, in today's world, a lot of parents think their kids have got to have a brand new television in their room.
Welcome back. For decades, the Republican Party was the pro-life party, branding themselves.
Here's the junker TV. And when I tap on it, you can tell how it goes berserk. Even whenever I tap on the top of the TV,
a judge in Colorado has said closing arguments for next week.
Alright, here's the business end of that one with the busted panel. It looks more conventional on the inside with your power supply board there your main board there and your little Wi-Fi board up there, and then down here is all the connections to the panel. And this is a common failure where these tab bonds fail, where this ribbon cable is attached to the board here, and when that happens, pretty much it's just game over. Now there have been times when people have been able to jakeleg some kind of scheme to apply pressure to the faulty connection and make it work, but oftentimes that's just a short-term fix. But in this particular case, we know the panel's cracked anyway, so it wouldn't matter if we could get rid of all of the colored lines. The panel's still going to be cracked and not give you a good picture, but we'll play with this just to see what happens. Alright, I applied pressure to all of the tab bonds and it didn't really make any difference, but I can press on here on the panel itself and get all kind of interesting artifacts. Yeah, one of the feet on this is busted off, so I'm more inclined to believe this TV was in a major accident, and that's what did this one in. So yeah, about all this one's going to be good for is parts. I'll pull the boards off of it and save the screws and all that for future use, and throw the rest of it in the garbage. Alright, here it is stripped, back cover in place with a couple of screws to hold it on, and it's fixing to go in the garbage can. And these boards and the speakers and the little feed, even though one of them's broken, might come in handy for something one day, you never know. So, and we got a good power cord out of the deal, so yeah, the TV is deposited in the can out there, and hopefully the garbage people will pick it up.